Hi, I'm Kristin Omdahl with Red Heart Yarns. In a perfect world, all of our knit and crochet projects would be seamless, but alas, they are not. And oftentimes we have to knit pieces or crochet pieces in separately and then join them together with sewing or other various techniques. The good news is there are lots of different tools and gadgets to make it a lot simpler. And I have a few different varieties of tools to show you today. The Susan Bates Tapestry Needles come in a variety of sizes and materials, and there's reasons why. Here's an assortment of Susan Bates yarn needles. Sometimes a pattern will call for a tapestry needle, and that's really just an old-fashioned term for the same type of needle. What it really means is it's a larger needle with a large eye at the top for threading yarn rather than thread, and a blunt tip, which is for weaving in and out of yarn without splitting the yarn. We have an assortment of materials and details on these that make them all different. Sometimes it's a personal preference, and other times there is a purpose for using the different types. For example, we have the bent tip yarn needle here, and this one is something that some people prefer to use all the time. I don't use mine all the time, but I do use it when I need to manipulate the stitches a little bit. If I'm going to try to do the ease around a neck or a curved edge, this helps me to manipulate the fabric a little more than a straight tip. Some of them are a little bit sharper, like for example, this plastic one has a sharper point than this plastic one. And if I'm going to be weaving in ends, I'm going to choose, in a worsted weight yarn, I'm going to choose the blunt tipped one, because in a thicker yarn I would be afraid of splitting the yarn with the sharper, more narrow point. Now if you're using a thinner yarn, you'd be absolutely fine using that type of a point. Then we have the steel ones the straight steel ones come in a variety of sizes too. And again, same as the plastic ones. I would use the larger one on a worsted weight yarn with the blunt tip, whereas with the narrower tip, that one you might split a larger yarn, and that could get kind of messy on the back end. So what you would want to do is use this one on some of your smaller yarns. We have another really great accessory here that I want to show you, and these are called knit clips. And you use these, it's very much like a hair clip, which I love to use, but these are used for securing your yarn when you're holding two pieces together before seaming them. And I don't know if you've had this problem before, but I know I have. And that's if you start at the end here and think you're working evenly from one side to the other, by the time I get to the top or to the end of a seam, it can be off by as much as an inch or two. And so to make sure that that doesn't happen, you can, when you line these up perfectly next to each other, just take your clip, and notice there's just a prong on one side and it works into the hole on the other, and you just, so it's not really doing anything at all to the yarn, it's not doing anything at all to your fabric, it's just a temporary securing of your fabric to make sure that one side isn't skewing off to the differently from the other one. So at this point you could clip all the way down, and what you would do is, as you're sewing and sewing them back and forth to each other, you're going to take one off when you get closer to it and keep going until you take the final one off and finish. And that's the way you'll get perfectly seamed edges from start to finish. Now I also have a crochet fabric here that I want to show you. And there are, again, in the knitted one, there's many varieties for sewing them together, but what I was showing you was for how to join them in a mattress stitch. In the crochet fabric, there's lots of ways to join crochet fabric as well. Traditionally, I would use, or more often than not, I would hold them together and crochet them together. And to do that, oh, and we also have a smaller clip for a thinner fabric like this. So what you would do is clip these. Now you could clip them the same way we did the last one, side by side, and clip them down along that line. But if you're going to crochet them together, you could also use the clips by holding both pieces together and lining your edges up perfectly. And this clip has the same exact mechanism inside, one prong to one hole. And you're going to clip along the edge of your fabric, lining them up perfectly so your edges are exactly the same. And then as you work, now this would be for either doing an overhand stitch or using a crochet hook and crocheting through both thicknesses. And as you work along, you would take the clip out as you approach that area, still securing all the way to the end until you actually get to the end. And then you'll have perfectly seamed fabric with 2 pieces without having gotten skewed at all.